So somewhat recently, New York Times put out a poll for actors, directors, critics, basically everyone, to talk about the best movies of the 21st century. And it generated a lot of conversation in our office. And then it generated a completely different conversation about the best video games of the 21st century. And we thought, hey, we've got microphones, we've got cameras, let's just sit down and do it. So here's our subjective take on the best games of the last 25 years. Let us know if you disagree down in the comments below. I'm sure you will. There was a lot of games in the last 25 years. Roll that footage.
Also, putting this together, we'll just do them in any old order? No. These are ranked. This took me time. This is a countdown. 10 to 1, best video games of the 21st century. Number 10, Sleeping Dogs. Sleeping Dogs always deserved its credits, its plaudits. One of the best third-person open-world action games there ever was. I absolutely love it. I replay it nearly every couple of years. Soundtrack's phenomenal. Wei Shen's a great character. The combat is just so cool. I love how much it's channeling all this Hong Kong action cinema infused with Western Hollywood ideals to give you all this over-the-top choreography and stunts and fun ways to blend the vehicles, the martial arts, the really cool point break, point blank, whatever you call it, style undercover cop story. It's just a sublime game. Sleeping Dogs absolutely effed and deserved a sequel.
Doom 2016.
Woo!
Yeah, a game which just never lets up. You pick up, you blast out of a sarcophagus at the start, you start tearing demons apart. Within 5 minutes, you've got the shotgun, you've cocked the shotgun, you've cracked your knuckles, you've told Samuel Hayden that you don't care about the reasons for the demon invasion. There's demons, there's zombies, there's cacodemons, big eye monsters, and you tear them to shreds and you shoot them, and there's gore everywhere, and there's constant, ridiculously aggressive metal playing the whole time. What a thrill ride.
Want to stay safe online and save big? Well, you can. Right now, you can get up to 76% off a 2-year NordVPN plan, plus 4 months free and up to a $50 Amazon gift card. And all you've got to do is click the link in the description below or on this QR code that should be right down here in this video to get signed up with this great deal right now.
I'm going to start with Yakuza Like a Dragon, I think, which is a weird one because I don't think it's a game I'm ever going to go back and play again because it's massive, but it arrived for me at a perfect time. As someone that didn't know that series, great place to jump in as a JRPG, and I love JRPGs, but there's lots of issues that I have with the genre. Sometimes the stories get really crazy and the settings don't work for me, but this is really grounded. It's also really weird and wacky, but it has a really grounded, human story to it. Ichiban is one of the best protagonists probably of all time. I had such fun with this game and just grew to love everything about it over the 90 hours or whatever I played.
First up, Silent Hill 2. Now, honestly, for my money, Silent Hill 2 on the PS2 is still one of the most atmospheric video games of all time. Maybe it's nostalgia speaking, but there's something about that PlayStation 2 style of horror that I find enduring and almost timeless despite the technical shortcomings if you compare it to Silent Hill 2 Remake today. There is just something about that grey industrial feeling, the sense of isolation with the fog and the town and not knowing what's around the next corner that still holds up. And that's thanks in part to the incredible cinematic design of the world as well, from the camera angles that are used in gameplay and in the cutscenes to the overall approach to voice acting and character work, the switch between those pre-rendered cutscenes and actual gameplay. It all comes together to make something magical. You throw on top of that an absolute incredible story that still holds up to this day, and it's just one of the most singular games I've ever played.
My first pick is Guitar Hero 3.
Legends of Rock.
Legends of Rock, baby! And this game completely changed my whole music taste. And it came out at a point where I was in sort of a weird space, in my life. I think, was it 2007 it came out?
About then, yeah.
I just went to high school, and it was everyone was listening to this sort of, what we dub as chorva music up here. It's it was before dubstep was a thing, but it's MCing and all that stuff. And there was me, I didn't really get along with that sort of thing. And when I played Guitar Hero 3, it was just this whole new discovery of music, and it completely blew my mind. You've got Mississippi Queen, you've got Cliffs of Dover, you've got Slash, Tom Morello, and all that good stuff. And I've always been like off and on with the real guitar, like in real life. Like I never really had the sort of discipline to sit down and properly get like decent at the real instrument. But with Guitar Hero, something about it, I just got like sucked in, and I was making my way through like medium, went up to hard, and eventually I did get up to expert, and to this day I can still play expert. And this game is just incredible and has such a special place in my heart because it's been so influential in terms of like my music taste. Like I owe it all to Guitar Hero 3.
So as everyone knows, I'm a big movie guy, first and foremost, so don't be surprised that most of these are going to be like just movie influenced. And to start off, I thought I'd do it in the letterboxd kind of way, where I would do like my top 4. So these are like my 4 favorites, but they're in no particular special order, I guess. And then after that, it'll just be everything else from the 21st century that has appealed to me directly. But starting off, we're going with Red Dead Redemption 2, which I do think is the pinnacle of the gaming art form. Obviously, I'm a huge cowboy western guy. It just hits every single beat and note for me. I've gone on about this game so many times over the years. There's nothing else that I could possibly add to why it is the best. But narratively, devastating, gameplay-wise, one of the most immersive and compelling and just detailed gaming experiences ever. Arthur Morgan is the best. I think it's amazing, and again, it's just the complete pinnacle of what the open world genre can be, what Rockstar can do when they're taking themselves seriously on a narrative level. I love cowboys. I love to root and toot. Love to root and toot. Pew pew.
Next up, Immortality. Now, this is definitely the most unique game that I have on my list. Immortality, if you don't know, is something akin to an FMV film. If you played the developer's other titles, including Her Story, for instance, you'll know that the bulk of the game is spent watching live action clips. This time around, it's clips from 3 different movies that are shot across 3 different timelines, all starring the same actress. And you're scrubbing through these clips looking for clues, trying to piece together not just the story of the films themselves, but what is happening outside of the productions and what is going on with this lead character and why does she keep appearing in all these films and why hasn't she seemed to age. It gives you that sense of investigation and interrogation. It's kind of the equivalent to what you see in films where someone's hunkered down in a library and they're going through old papers trying to connect the dots. It gets you on that investigative level, but also just the films themselves, the films inside the game are absolutely incredible to look at. So well directed, so well performed. And there is a hidden edge to it that I don't want to spoil that connects everything in a really unnerving and thought-provoking way. I love it. I could play this thing all the time and I never ever want to stop shouting its praises.
Number 9, I'm going to do Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, I think. There's a big part of me that wants to say Breath of the Wild. I mean, it's maybe critically the darling, and I think it's a really important game, and I had a great time with it, but when I think back on my history with Zelda, Majora's Mask was the first game that really, really got me, and it appeals to so much of my tastes. Being kind of like the scrappy underdog of Zelda, being developed in such a short time period, reusing assets, and reusing those assets in really strange, dark ways. It is a depressing game, a horrifying game, and surprisingly, I like that kind of stuff, so give me dark, grungy, you have 3 days to save the world Zelda any day.
Next up, we have Call of Duty World at War. This one for me is special because not only is the campaign incredible, the multiplayer is the first Call of Duty game where I got a 10th prestige as well. And it's mainly due to the zombies mode, like finishing that campaign, watching the credits and all that, and then having like this cutscene of these figures running towards a house and thinking, what's going on here? And then it just flashes up zombies and you're put in the house. I think it's Nocte Untoten. I'm probably butchering that. That is what the first map was called. You're basically put in this house with a pistol and it's like, what's going on? And suddenly all these zombies start breaking in and you basically have to survive an impossible task because it'll get to a certain point where you're just going to die regardless. So it's like you're feeling very helpless and it's just a complete like capturing of what a zombie apocalypse would feel like. I know it's a little bit contrived because it's Call of Duty, but like I very much love zombie games, and this mode, they released like Verrucht in Shinonuma, then Derice, which is my favorite map, and it was just incredible. And again, I was in high school when this came out, so I was like playing this with my friends from school as well, so that's why it holds such like a special place in my heart. And the whole package is great, but it's zombies for me. That's like the winner.
Next up, I'd have to say Bloodborne, game which I can't help replaying every opportunity I get, because it's just, you know, of all the From Software titles that I've played anyway, I'd say it's right up at the top. It's, you know, it's kind of gothic, it's pre-Victorian, it's got this ugly, plague-ridden, just nasty, it's a game you can smell, you know? And sometimes a game you can smell, even if that smell is awful. It's great. You know, starting off fighting sort of werewolves and nasty kind of classic beast-like creatures, for that all to eventually kind of cascade into a cosmic nightmare that might have been there all along is incredibly terrifying and really, really gets in your head. It lives in my head rent-free, Bloodborne, and what more can you ask for?
Next up, in like the core Ewan branding of the best games of the 21st century, and I actually should have clarified beforehand now that there's like barely any games from before the 21st century that I've played, because I'm like not from the 80s.
You're a baby!
No, I'm not a little guy. I'm just a little guy. But if I'm going to talk about foundational Ewan gaming experiences, it has to be the Tom Clancy franchise. And from that franchise, the pinnacle for me will always be Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell Chaos Theory. The first Splinter Cell masterpiece, Pandora Tomorrow, also a masterpiece. But Chaos Theory, I think we've really forgotten just how brilliant a game this is. And certainly in regards to, you know, when we talk about the stealth action genre, Metal Gear quite rightly gets a lot of plaudits. I'm not here to, you know, bring one franchise down in the name of lifting up another, but I do think that we've forgotten just how great Ubisoft were as a company, and also how brilliant Chaos Theory is. You know, Michael Ironside as the voice of Sam Fisher, just brilliant. The animation quality in those games is ridiculous. The level of stealth is just brilliant. So atmospheric, so good. The tri-goggles are like iconic beyond all belief. And yeah, I could have put any like Tom Clancy game from like the mid to late 2000s in here, like Rainbow Six Vegas, Rainbow Six Vegas 2, or even Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter, because those games are also great. But for me, this is the absolute peak of military action, shootery, stealthy goodness in the gaming industry. So yeah, Chaos Theory.
Number 9, Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection. Now this is something that I absolutely loved on the PlayStation Portable, the original PSP in the middle of the 2000s. I think it came out in like 2005 or whatever. Dark Resurrection was the updated version of Tekken 5 that was on home consoles. I think it was in the arcades. Just sublime Tekken. I had to pick. This was a hard thing. I only have like a minute or so to talk about this, but I was going back and forth between, you know, Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection, Tekken 8, Mortal Kombat 9, Mortal Kombat 11, Dead or Alive 2, if we're talking about some really cool beat-em-ups and or fighting games. And I went with Tekken 5. If I'm thinking about the most fun that I had with a beat-em-up video game, and there I go calling it a beat-em-up again, a fighting game, and I'm going to go with Tekken. If outside of Tekken 3, it's got to be Tekken 5. Just some sublime, supremely playable, especially handheld Tekken on the go.
You knew it was coming. I couldn't get rid of it. You were going to talk about Batman Arkham and what culture gaming video? Yeah, I am. I'm going to talk about it again. And I know that I do go on about Batman Arkham Origins a lot on this channel. And narratively, I do think it is the best game in the series, and I do think there are other great things about it. However, in terms of atmosphere, influence, and overall just kind of maybe nostalgia as well, and also impact on me, the original Batman Arkham Asylum is still the best in the biz. It is just a brilliant, fantastic gameplay experience. As someone who grew up with the DC animated universe and Batman animated series, it is just the perfect distillation of everything I love about that character in terms of, you know, bringing Paul Dini back to write the story, Kevin Conroy, the late great Kevin Conroy as Batman, Mark Hamill as the Joker, Arlene Sorkin as well, who's also sadly no longer, you know, with us as Harley Quinn. It's just a perfect title, and I'm so happy that Rocksteady were able to develop their own aesthetic with that series, you know, with the concept art by Carlos de Anda. it's just it works so well, and I still have that first trailer burned into my brain that was included on the Blu-ray for The Dark Knight. I know Dan Durkin will remember this, and just being immediately like, whoa, a good Batman game? We might have all those in like forever. And yeah, Arkham Asylum, it's the best. Yeah.
Shadow of the Colossus, of course. We can't not mention Shadow of the Colossus. Ride through that barren but beautiful wilderness to almost complete silence on horseback, and then suddenly be confronted by one of the most impressive, loud, and gigantic boss fights ever, and then back into that silence. It's a game of contrasts, and I think that's something that has been missing from a lot of games, which need to kind of constantly push the excitement. You've got your downtime and your uptime, and it's incredible for that.
And next up, we have a probably controversial one, but if you know me, you know I love Fortnite. This game came out in 2017, and initially it was a PvE experience. It was like you had to like defend this thing. I can't remember what it was called, but you had to like build around it and defend against waves of husks, which were essentially zombies. And this mode itself, while it wasn't completed when the game came out, I think it was launched in like beta or something. This is what like got me into Fortnite. It was before the battle royale trend, which is crazy to see. Like this sort of thing where you had to like level up your guns and level up your home base and all that. It was such like a fun experience. And then of course, after PUBG came out and got very big, Fortnite decided to do the old battle royale thing. And God, this was the first battle royale game I played, and I remember sitting in like a pub with my friends, and one of them was telling us about this new game Fortnite. It's got this new mode, and it's like 100 people drop into the map, and you're sort of like forced together as the zone closes in. And I was just like, how can 100 people be like on one multiplayer server? It blew my mind, and then I was like, you know what? I'll give it a go. And ever since that first game, I was just hooked. And over the years, I've kind of jumped off and on with Fortnite because it kind of got to a point where the skill gap was huge, and if you weren't keeping up with like the master builders, it kind of ruined the experience a little bit. But then in Chapter 3, they brought in the zero build game mode, and that's when I jumped back in. It was actually James Dowse that like he roped us into it, and ever since then I've been consistently playing. Like they've done all the crossovers and all that, and I'm a sucker for a skin in a video game. Like I've spent so much money, so much money, and I'm not ashamed of that. I love the game. I put so much time into it, and it's obviously a free to play game, so I don't mind kicking them a few quid for some V-Bucks every now and then. But yeah, I think Fortnite is just a seminal game, and it's been so influential on the market for better or worse, but no game does it as well as Fortnite, in my opinion, in the Battle Royale genre.
Number 8, Batman Arkham Asylum, a seminal release, one of the most influential titles in, the last 25 years, something that birthed a combat system that even my beloved Sleeping Dogs would use a few years later. None of us saw Batman Arkham Asylum coming. None of us were expecting Rocksteady, because at the time they were pretty much a no-name studio. They only developed one thing beforehand. And going from that straight into one of the most recommendable, most playable, most immediately satisfying video games, and one of the best depictions of Batman across any medium, should be celebrated, from then to here and beyond. The way that Rocksteady went, let's talk less about that, but Arkham Asylum, pristine.
Number 8's probably going to get me hung, drawn, and quartered because it's Halo 4. What? I have to do it. Right, so I needed Halo on here in some fashion, and it's really hard to pick what is the best Halo game. I mean, Halo 3. And maybe Halo 3, right? But when I think about subjectively what was important to me, it's Halo 4. It was all my friends I was playing Halo with were leaving at that point to go to uni, or they were starting families, and it was just kind of me who stayed on for Halo 4, and so it became my Halo game. And I was really invested in the story at this point, and I liked the reset of it. Like, it has to ebb and flow. We couldn't go bigger than Halo 3. We needed to go kind of more just personal with Chief and Cortana. I loved all that stuff. It's by no means perfect. It's deeply flawed, but it's important to me in my history with Halo. So objectively, no, it's not the best Halo game, but I'm putting it in here anyway.
Next up, Death Stranding. Now, Death Stranding, to many people, is probably known as the Amazon delivery game, where all you do is walk across a world and deliver packages. And while that is technically true, it is so much more than that. We've talked so much, at least I have, from my previous picks about that sense of atmosphere and that sense of a definitive place. And like Silent Hill 2 and Immortality, Death Stranding has that singularity when it comes to what it's trying to depict, that you are this one person in a massive dystopian future where everyone is isolating themselves, and you are the one person who can connect them in between this at once haunting landscape and lush landscape that is surrounded by death and decay. I just think it's so imaginatively put together, and the story is one thing. The story is excellent. It's Kojima firing on all cylinders, but the gameplay loop itself, delivering packages, is so satisfying when you get your supply lines all hooked up, when you get your zipline systems all in place, when you get your roads built and you're able to deliver those big cargoes and you're able to get those 5 stars from all the distribution centers. It is unfathomably one of the best gameplay systems, no joke, ever. One of the most addicting, at least.
So next up, we have Resident Evil 4 Remake. So Capcom had the impossible task of remaking one of the most influential games of all time, and I was very skeptical about this one because I love Resident Evil 4, the original. I don't think that's a secret. So it was like, how are they going to do this? I know 2 Remake came out and it was incredible, but that was sort of remaking a game that was very old. It was obviously fixed camera angles and all that, so it was like kind of, it made more sense for that to be updated with like modern controls and all that, and obviously the over-the-shoulder camera. But with Resident Evil 4, it still very much like holds up in a sense that you can play through it now and it doesn't feel out of place with modern games. I know the graphics are a little bit not as great and you can't move while shooting, but like that adds to like the charm of it. So Resident Evil 4 Remake came out and I was just blown away by like the atmosphere that they managed to capture. They made it a little bit darker, a little bit more serious in places, but they didn't lose the charm of the original, which I think was very important to capture, because it can be a little bit campy and a little bit like, that's a bit weird, because it obviously came out in 2005. It was different back then, but like they managed to capture the soul of Resident Evil 4, and that just takes us back that video, the soul versus soulless thing. It's like, nah, they knew what they were doing with this one. And when you compare it to the likes of Resident Evil 3, which a lot of people see is sort of like a shell of a game, I think Resident Evil 4 is the full package. We have mercenaries, we have the DLC with separate ways, and it just has infinite replayability, especially if you're on PC as well, because you can mod different things. There's the randomizers, which are so fun. It's just an incredible game, and Capcom like nailed it.
Ghost of Tsushima, a game that made the bold choice to be entirely in black and white. A game that I made the bold choice to play entirely in black and white. Everyone told me I was mental for it, and I probably was. You know, I have played it in colour. Of course, it's gorgeous in colour. Its use of colour is wonderful. But I got a certain vibe from the Kurosawa mode. A terrible name for it, I will say, because Kurosawa, have you ever seen Kurosawa use colour? He loved colour. But I'll actually make some points about the game. A phenomenally written piece of work that kind of deconstructs to an extent the idea of the honorable samurai and how great they were, when actually a lot of those codes of honor were, you know, would hurt the country at large, would hurt them as a force. The battle between pragmatism and honor kind of brings you to a head with your most beloved, you know, family member, and it's you know, one of the most moving endings you could possibly come across. Which will leave you conflicted in ways that very few other games can.
Did you kill him?
I did kill him.
I killed him.
Yeah, because I feel that in the end, we don't hate Lord Shimura. He wanted that, and we gave him what he wanted, and I think, you know, that was a way of showing him the love that he still deserved.
Next up, Resident Evil Remake. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of Resident Evil chatter from my colleagues and friends on this list, but I had to go with Resident Evil Remake despite there being so much competition, because to me, Resident Evil Remake is like the peak of the entire genre, not just the franchise. It is that classic fixed camera angle, tank control style, absolutely maximalized and perfected of that era. I don't think there's any game that looks better or plays better that is trying to do that classic survival horror thing than Resident Evil Remake. It's not just a loving recreation of the original RE, it's also a faithful adaptation of it as well, adding new things and playing with the players' own expectations, whether that's in terms of the Crimson Heads or zombies themselves not being able to get through doors until they can get through doors. It's just absolutely peak survival horror. It's still one of the best looking games of all time, despite being so old. Atmosphere, which I've spoken a lot about on this list so far, is unparalleled. The characters, the gameplay, all built on solid foundations, of course, but just taken to the next level.
It's LA Noire! I love LA Noire. Again, as someone who loves Rockstar games, you know, it's developed by Team Bondi, but someone who loves Rockstar and whose least favorite Rockstar franchise is GTA. LA Noire represents the all the potential that I think of when I think of Rockstar in terms of how it pushed animation quality forward, the motion capture. I know it's memed. I know since the VR days of LA Noire, it's now like one of the most memed games out there. But it is a brilliant experience. And again, as someone whose love of gaming primarily comes from other sources of fiction and media, as a person who loves noir, this is everything that I want to. It kind of distills that James Ellroy aesthetic and vibe into video game form, so I kind of have to love it for that reason. Yeah, it maybe is a little bit derivative in terms of the cues it takes from something like an LA Confidential or the other books in Ellroy's LA Quartet, but it is a true love letter to that genre. And I think now, you know, it's one of those where like I don't think you could do it again, because I don't think the gaming industry is in a brave enough place to, you know, do a AAA action adventure detective game set during the Cold War and like the Red Scare. But I'm so glad it exists, because it is just a complete beaut of an experience. And yeah, give me that sequel. Give me the sequel now, I need it!
My seventh one is going to be Resident Evil 7. Of course, a Resident Evil game. I know, that's surprising, but this one, I think RE2, when you look back on like those, at least the last like 5 or 6 years of Resident Evil, was probably the most playable one, like from a gameplay perspective, the strongest. RE7 is a vibes game, and I really love that about it as a kind of, I mean, most Resident Evil games are single space horror, but I love it because it was a refreshing new single space. The RPD, I love the RPD, but I wanted to go to this creepy backwoods mansion and all this stuff with the terrifying family. It was just exactly what Resident Evil needed, and I came into it being completely unsure about it, and it's right up there for me as one of the best games in the series. It's hard to replay because there's lots of like crawling between small gaps and all this annoying stuff, but it's like a linchpin of Resident Evil at this point, I think, and it's going to be really important when we look back, even now, at the series history, and really important for me and my history with Resident Evil. So 7.
Number 7, Clair Obscur Expedition 33. I've talked about it so much. I have a Tomorrow Comes tattoo on my arm. I absolutely fell in love with this game. I love every single thing about it. I think the combat's incredible. I love how much it modernizes and expands on the idea of turn-based, action-based combat. The story is so thematically rich. The characters are brilliant. I love all the different interpretations that you can run with by the end of the game. Every single element of it, even the way that it was put together. The developers, Sandfall, recruiting a whole bunch of juniors, giving them a chance to code and write and art direct and everything from an ex-Ubisoft guys. You know, shout out to Guillaume Broche for bringing the whole thing together. I just think it's an absolute wall-to-wall masterpiece.
Hard Space Shipbreaker. Yeah, a work sim. Who'd have thought? But it's the kind of it's kind of the work sim at its peak, because it's not, you know, it's not Euro Truck Simulator or Lawn Mowing Simulator or Power Wash Simulator. You know, not to throw any shade on those games. I love Power Wash Simulator, but any of those games, you know, sort of mostly realistic work sims. This is kind of taking the work simulator to the 21st 4th century or something like that, 26th century maybe, I can't quite remember. You know, in zero gravity, you know, you are a shipbreaker, which is a profession that exists now, taking apart derelict ships. And it's one of the most dangerous jobs on the planet. You know, it has a huge rate of like on-site death and accidents. It's a terrible job for all involved. So here it is, but the ships now are, of course, derelict space vessels of varying sizes, various uses. You know, you're in zero gravity, having to kind of use your laser cutters to meticulously take these apart and put them into the right kind of disposal areas. So there's all the very nice sort of aspect of just meditatively doing your work, taking a ship apart. But beneath all that, there is a whole story about this hyper-capitalist company has putting you into billions and billions of dollars of debt just for the privilege of working for them. And there are various co-workers who are starting to unionize. There's talk of industrial action. There's talk of bringing in new managers who are strike breakers, and it all comes to a head in a story just told over the radios between the characters. And it's just a really great experience to kind of, you know, to continue working on while a revolution quietly brews in the background. Very, very important game, if you ask me.
I needed a Smash Brothers game in here, so at number 6, I think it just has to be Smash Brothers Ultimate. Brawl is the one for me where I was really deeply into it, but that game is kind of a busted mess. But Ultimate, I think, is in name and nature. Like, the sheer degree of content in that game is ridiculous. I think the story mode in it is great. The story mode, the campaign, I guess, where you're like going across this world map full of the spirits, and hey, you can fight Kappa from Animal Crossing. He's not in the game, but we took another character, put them on a water-based map, made it just feel like you were fighting them. And there's like hundreds of those. That's really fun. And obviously it's just like maybe it's not the apex of Nintendo Switch multiplayer, but it's like in the top 3 with Mario Kart and Mario Party. Like, you need to have it if you're going to have house parties with your friends and do Switch gaming or whatever. It's one of those things where now everyone is just at that point where it's like, what does Smash Brothers do next? Because Ultimate is like this pinnacle that you just, it is the ceiling. You cannot go up from here. So it needs to be in here. And also it's a celebration of gaming as well. Like, it's the best celebration of gaming history we've probably ever had.
Number 6, The Last of Us. The original Last of Us, before the franchise was tarnished and stretched out and made to just be the most dragged out thing possible. You have to try and remember what it felt like to go through the original The Last of Us. I absolutely adored this thing. It felt like a seminal moment in gaming. It felt like one of those times that we all just stood and went, it's pretty damn impressive how far video games have come, and that perfect blend of cutscenes and gameplay, it reinforcing each other, spending time as Joel with Ellie, developing that relationship, building to the ultimate way that story goes at the very end, and just loving every single minute of it. This was Naughty Dog at the absolute apex of their popularity, delivering one of the finest video games works of art in all of gaming.
Okay, so next up here, I should have maybe put this at 3rd on the list, but it's Halo 3, which to me is the pinnacle of that franchise. Now, I know you can make an argument for Combat Evolved, you can make an argument for Halo 2. There's probably people out there making an argument for Reach, which I can respect, despite the armor abilities being a big old, really frustrating pile of poo. But Halo 3 is just the perfect shooter. It is the pinnacle of the FPS genre. On also kind of like Xbox as like a cultural event. Like the trailers, the hype, the build up to all of this, the story, the music, the fun memories of like doing the co-op campaign, with friends, the final bit where you're in the Warthog together as the Arby and the Chief. And the multiplayer, I feel like I have such a high standard for multiplayer in games because Halo 3 is probably the most balanced and skill-based competitive multiplayer that I've ever encountered. It was an education, really. And it's interesting because I got into Halo 3 after getting ODST. So I played ODST, got Halo 3's multiplayer. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then I went through all the Halo campaigns. And yeah, just Forge, everything. It's kind of like, it's just this perfect combination of like compelling narrative, amazingly high-octane multiplayer gameplay, and then also creativity and community with Forge and custom games. So some of my finest, happiest gaming memories come from Halo 3, so it has to be there.
Next up, Mass Effect. Now, unsurprisingly, it was a bit of a difficult decision to choose between Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2, but there's something about that original game, the potential of it, the tone of it, which is much more hopeful and much more classic sci-fi than the later sequels that I've gravitated towards over the years. Yes, it's not all there. There is a lot of egregious pop-in on the textures. There are a lot of planets that you can explore that don't have all that much to them, but that sense of freedom, that sense of space exploration, I still think is unparalleled. And to come out of nowhere with a world as fully embodied as the one that Mass Effect gave us, with all the different alien races, with all of the different lore mechanics and the history of the world, it's just still a universe that I love to get lost in, and a universe that I love to make decisions in, and everything from the aesthetic to the gameplay to the RPG choices, it's peak gaming goodness.
And next up we have what is probably the first RPG I ever played. It's Fallout 3. And I know Joe's probably rolling his eyes over there because
Fallout 3's alright.
yeah. So this game was recommended to me by a friend. Again, this is like high school era. It was 2008, and I was very much like a shooter person, like the Call of Duties, the Gears of Wars, all that. Like I like just shooting things and not thinking too much about it. Like I know, sue me. But this game, you are put into this sort of like, it's not a super dense RPG. I think maybe New Vegas is more of that, but just loading it up, you get to pick your stats, you get to like choose your dialogue options and all that. And that was such a new experience to me. And I can always remember like the first time I played it, I went down into the underground tunnels and stuff, and like the ghouls are running around, and it's genuinely terrifying, like going through that experience for the first time. And I can just remember like being at school and just sitting in like a maths lesson or something, just thinking about getting home and playing more Fallout 3 because it was so engrossing, and it like took over my life at one point. I was just like, oh, this game is just perfection. And when I'm not playing it, I'm thinking about playing it, and that is a sign of a good game, I think. So yeah, Fallout 3 is definitely up there.
Next up, Disco Elysium. Maybe the best written game ever made. Certainly one of my favorites when it comes to the world building and characters. I think it's a hard thing to get the tone of a game like this right. One that is trying to blend so many different heavy themes and incredibly traumatizing subject matters that this thing broaches, while also giving the world a sense of humor and incorporating everything into this surrealistic, maximalistic, over-the-top thing. It's a game that really couldn't work in anyone else's hands, but the developers managed to just drive home every element. The haunting music, the location itself, the amount of sway that you have on your character and on the story. The fact that your version of Harry can be anyone from a fascist to a communist, from a drunk to someone who is going straight edge and is teetotal. There's just so much room there for role-playing, and the game is always adapting to your choices. It's pretty much role-playing perfection, and it certainly is as close as you're going to get to writing perfection. And yeah, I hear those initial bars of the main Martinez song, and I'm right back in the game.
And it wouldn't be the greatest gaming list of the 21st century if I didn't mention Halo 3. I know Ewan has already mentioned this and has probably articulated his points much better than I could, but I just want to say this. This is the perfect storm of video game like content. You had the campaign, which was incredible. It was ending this story that was so huge and bombastic, and obviously Halo 2 like ended on a cliffhanger, so it was people waiting for what's going to happen with the Chief. And then you have the multiplayer component, which was just, again, as Ewan said, it was perfectly balanced, to quote Thanos. And it was just so fun. Maybe not Snowbound, because that map sucked. I've still got like bad feelings about that. But like all the weapons were incredible. Like using the sniper, using the battle rifle. It was very heavily skill based. And the fact that everybody started off like with the assault rifle, the same gun and all that, it was like, okay, we're putting this arena and it's like, may the best person win. It was probably the first game where I took multiplayer seriously in terms of like the lone wolf game mode, where you're by yourself, you're fighting other people by themselves. Like it's everyone versus everyone. And I used to love that. And like you've got Forge after that as well, which was just amazing. To this day, you can go on and play like those maps in like the Master Chief Collection where you can jump over the thing and there's cars being flung at you. You've got like Griff Ball and all that. There's just an endless amount of content there. And the last thing is the theater mode as well, which obviously spawned all of like the machinima creations and all that. And it was just like, well, it didn't invent it, but you know what I mean? It continued it on and innovated it in a way where it got huge. And it was very like, you'd go on YouTube back in the day and you just see Halo 3 like content there, and it was incredible. And I may or may not have like dabbled in that, and maybe that's where I got my love for like editing and all that stuff. Like we're going very deep rooted now, but yeah, Halo 3 just peak gaming, absolute peak.
Number 5, Gears of War 2. I'm a sucker for a middle installment. Gears of War 2, the Horde mode, the improvements to the combat, all the different fatalities that you could suddenly do on downed opponents. That stuff was just so much fun. And I love the expansion of the story. You know, Gears of War, if you were there at the time, if you were lucky enough to be there at the time, was a historic series to watch play out. It was so much fun. And, you know, people got tattoos. There was the logos, the iconography of Gears. The whole presentation of the world itself on Sarah, the characters, how over the top everybody was, you know, Cliff Bleszinski's overall direction for the franchise. I just absolutely loved my time with Gears of War. And if you were there at the time, you had a 360, you know exactly what I mean. Gears 3 is awesome too, but there was something about 2, especially the Horde mode. All 50 waves of that, I still remember beating that to this day with my friends in school.
Next up, it's Hades. And it's not just because I'm in love with all the cool character art, although that's definitely probably a big contributing factor because I love Meg. Hades. This is a game that kind of arrived at a moment for me where I was not really falling out of love with gaming, but certainly was kind of in that existential moment during the beginning of the current console generation, console cycle, where I was like, what am I doing here? What games have come out that are really speaking to me and are resonating with me? And then Hades came along and kind of recalibrated my brain and made me realize that I was like, okay, I've missed a part of gaming that is like inherently kind of challenging, but also, you know, based on discovery. I feel like we've gotten a lot of experiences over the last 10 years that are reiterating things that we're already familiar with. But Hades came along, and while it's a throwback in many ways, it's also completely innovative. And again, you know, having those outside interests and stuff like Greek mythology and stuff, it's just brilliant. The voice acting's wonderful. I love the environmental design. I love the combat. And cannot wait for Hades too.
I think another one's going to have to be Batman Arkham Asylum. The Arkham games in general, I think, are brilliant. I think each of the others has its own flaws. I'm sorry you haven't played Origins yet. I'm going to get it on PC though, I think, because it'll be that'll be the way to do it. And I promise I will. But Arkham Asylum works for being sort of the first of the Arkham games in its purest form, in being so incredibly contained, set just within the grounds of the Asylum, which obviously the Asylum is massive anyway. So it's still this great big, like, gothic, atmospheric, dangerous playground for Batman. Whilst not getting kind of as bloated or side questy as the city in the other games, Arkham City and Arkham Knight kind of expand their scope and are proof that bigger isn't always better. And yeah, the purity of Asylum is just all I want to go to there. And obviously it pioneered a fighting system which is now being used in every game. You know, there are now 2 fighting systems. There's the Arkham combat system and there's the Souls combat system. And I remember the first time playing Arkham Asylum, very shortly after it came out, and having my mind blown by how that combat worked. I was like, this is easy to control and makes me feel so tough. And beyond that, it's got all your Batman the Animated Series voice cast, and of course, Batman the Animated Series is the definitive Batman. Certainly to me, it's what I grew up with, and as an extension of that, I couldn't ask for anything more.
Number 5 is Rock Band 2. I had to do it to him. I love a rhythm game, and I'd say it could have been any of them. Even to this day play Clone Hero and stuff like that, but it couldn't have been any of them. It had to be Rock Band 2. Rock Band 1 was like a minor revelation, but Rock Band 2 kind of stole the vast majority of my sort of late teens and early 20s. It introduced me to so many great bands, so many great songs, and just kind of grew my love of music in all fashions, whether that's writing my own or finding new artists and singing as well. In general, I was not particularly interested and confident in it, but then the microphone's thrust into your hand and somebody goes, you know the words to Hysteria by Muse, and that was it. From then on, it was like keeping a list of the 100% that you had. And yeah, I love a good music game, and Rock Band 2 I played Guitar Hero 3 and it's great, but that big shared experience of Rock Band is kind of unbeatable.
Next up is Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. Now, I was going to have a Star Wars game on here originally, and spoilers, there's no other Star Wars games actually on my thing, which is shocking. But I kind of was thinking about it, and I just remembered how much fun and peace and tranquility I had as Edward Kenway on the waves, the Caribbean, sailing around, listening to my sailors go, Lowlands, Lowlands away. And I realized that in that moment, yeah, I kind of want to be back on the jackdaw with my guys, sailing, swashbuckling, stabbing, shooting. Yeah, it's gonna remember when Assassin's Creed was like this. You know, you talk about Assassin's Creed being this like kind of like the rote open world experience, but there was a point in time where Ubisoft was trying all these really cool things that, and Black Flag to me exemplifies all that potential in terms of the historical detail, but then also the naval combat. You know, if you like Master and Commander, and if you do, you're my people, then you have to play this because it's just the perfect Master and Commander, the Far Side of the World simulator. And again, a game I like because I like movies and history based around it. Anything if not predictable. But Black Flag, fantastic game, and here's hoping the remake's good.
Number 4, Red Dead Redemption, the original Red Dead Redemption. I don't mind Red Dead 2, but Red Dead 1 was just felt like a huge moment for Rockstar. That really good, solid melding of the gameplay systems they brought in GTA 4, the weight that the likes of the Rage engine started bringing to their games, mixed with the cutscenes, the directions, the gameplay, the overall art design that was here, and also, you know, playing as John Marston, trying to walk this line between good and bad, the sort of the gunslinger that's trying to retire and get out the way of the law that's kind of hunting him down. And obviously at this stage, I'll not do specific spoilers, but you probably know the way that the story ends, but the way all that stuff plays out and the agency that we had as players, again, it was a major deal. It was way back in 2010, but it was a major deal for the maturation of the medium of video games to be able to control this story for so long and go on that journey with John, and for it to play out the way that it did. And the mix of the music and, like I said, the gameplay, the responsiveness, the art direction. Red Dead Redemption 1 is truly special. And as much as Red Dead 2 is solid enough, I'll always have a very soft spot and a warm hug for Red Dead Redemption 1.
Next, Red Dead Redemption 2. One of the best sequels ever made, one of the best games ever made. Red Dead 2 is Rockstar at the peak of its powers. One of the richest open world games you can possibly get your hands on. It's an absolute joy to just go out off the beaten path in this game and to live as Arthur Morgan, to spend day by day as a cowboy, going hunting, solving crimes, playing blackjack or whatever it is, ripping off store owners. Just that sense of freedom that you get in the gameplay, and the richness again of the open world, and how many random events there are and how many things there are to see, just makes it a compelling experience from beginning to end. And then you have the more cinematic side of the game with just an incredible story, a fantastic cast of characters that blends that humor and that despair of being at the end of something. RDR2 is something I cannot sum up in 60 seconds, and I've probably already gone a little bit longer, but it's a game that I'll always come back to.
And next up, we have to include this game because it is just one of my favorite games of all time. It's Pokemon Emerald, and this is the greatest Pokemon game ever made. I will die on that hill. It's Gen 3. You've got all the starters, which are amazing. I know I've got a Gen 2 starter on there, but I'd love a Gen 3 starter too. I was a Torchic kid myself. But I've grown to love them all. But yeah, this game was just taking what Ruby and Sapphire did and just expanding upon it. Everything from just the soundtrack that's so bombastic and just incredible. I keep saying incredible, but this game is incredible. The sprite animations when you chuck a Pokemon in, that was new. And like the legendary Pokemon you can get with the event tickets, you can capture Mew for the first time. The stuff with Deoxys was awesome. It's just, this is the perfect Pokemon game, and there's a reason why this game is used as the base for all of the ROM hacks. Like, this is where Pokemon peaked, in my opinion, and I want a modern day way to play this game. Like, release it on Switch. Like, come on, Nintendo.
For number 4, let's do Horizon Zero Dawn. I think everyone knew it was going to be on here. Probably for me, and I know there's going to be a lot of disagreement, but it's my favourite first-party Sony property, with the asterisks of they just have never lived up to this first game. And I don't 100% a lot of games, but I've 100%ed Horizon Zero Dawn twice all the way through, just for the fun of it. I had the platinum, I was like, what if I did it again, right? It's just an incredibly lush, interesting world. Both the sort of sci-fi element of the machines, but also like the tribes and the clans and how it all came to be, sort of piecing that together as you delve under the planet and figure out what the hell's going on. The propaganda of it all, the flashbacks, the villain that you'll never get to touch who caused all this 1,000 years ago. There's just so much depth to that. And I love in video games, Resident Evil does it, Metroid does it, coming into something and learning about it by reading the diaries and listening to the audio logs, piecing that all together. I think Aloy's a really good protagonist for what it's worth. I think the characters in general are really strong, and the gameplay is very, very addictive. Yeah, Horizon. I love that world. I just wish it loved me as much as I love it.
Silent Hill 2. It is easily one of the best games, again, of the 21st century, and one of the greatest games ever. Atmosphere as thick as the fog that engulfs the town of Silent Hill. You know, it's lonely, it's cold, it's oppressive, it's kind of, everything's a little bit off. Especially if you're playing the original. You know, I'm not talking about the remake here. By all accounts, I've heard it's quite good. Don't care. You know, the original Silent Hill 2 is just filled with a kind of lingering menace that kind of extends all the way to the slightly dodgy voice acting, which makes everyone seem a little bit out of place. You know, it's just, yeah, it's fixed cameras, which, you know, I'm sad were removed from the remake. The whole thing just feels like a world that you're not quite in control of. You don't feel like you've got as much agency as you would in many other games. It's very voyeuristic, I feel. You know, it feels like you are controlling, but at the same time helplessly watching James Sunderland descend into this hell of his own making. Because, spoiler alert, it's all his fault. And again, that's some good character writing, you know, especially for 2001, I would say.
Number 3 is my second Resident Evil game, but I promise it's the last one. I had to put it in here. The quintessential Resident Evil, as I like to call it. It's the 2002 remake of the original game. Is it cheating to put a remake in here? I don't know, but this is so vastly... Dan's shaking his head, so I'm safe. This is so vastly different from the 96 version while keeping about 50% of its core. It loses the schlocky B-movie stuff, which is kind of a shame, but it makes up for that in dense atmosphere. A classic video game story with loads of new stuff tacked in, like the Crimson Heads, Lisa Trevor, a tragic figure still talked about all these years later. Bizarrely, really replayable because you have Chris and Jill on all the different difficulty options. You also have the one where all the enemies are invisible if you're a psychopath. The one where if you shoot that one zombie, the mansion explodes. There's a lot to this game, and I'm always discovering new stuff even to this day. So yeah, if it's one of those games where it's like, if you're on a desert island, I mean, RE2 is my favourite of all time, but I might pick this one because I played it slightly less.
Number 3, Mass Effect, the original Mass Effect. Nothing wrong with Mass Effect 2. You know, Mass Effect 3 was a whole, oh god, if you were there at the time type thing. But over the years, you know, I've gone back through Mass Effect 1 and 2. Couldn't get through 3, but we played through 1 and 2. And 2, interestingly, kind of feels like, you know, it's almost fundamentally meant to be a side story, whereas Mass Effect 1 is like this really Star Trek-y and expansive, go explore the galaxy, make your mark as a human, you know, among the cosmos, talking to all the different races for the first time, all the race relations that you get to have with everybody as they get to know you as a human, all the different viewpoints that you can put forward, the different ways that you can customize your Shepard, and all the terminology and the world building that BioWare did. You know, I absolutely love old school BioWare and the way that that really good meld of, you know, sci-fi world building with the deftness of the character writing that was there as well. There's a reason that people still pine for another Mass Effect. You know, we're going all the way back to like 2006, 2007. But the original Mass Effect was a hell of a footprint, right firm on the ground. Like, this is a new franchise. This is a really strong, capable, confident IP. And this is something that we can lead with going forward. And they did. You know, Mass Effect 1 and 2, absolutely incredible. 3 was the one that got butchered a little bit too much by EA, trying to chase the dollar through the multiplayer stuff. But still, if you go back through the Mass Effects, I think there's something about that first installment. There's something about the wonderment of being given your own ship as a human in this other world and going off and exploring and mopping up all the different side missions and all the different planets that you can go to. And yes, I love the Mako. I love the physics of that stupid thing, bouncing around on all the different planets and coming back to Earth and seeing what's going on. There's something about the original Mass Effect that is just genuine magic.
Red Dead Redemption 2, speaking of character writing, I love to come back to my writing and my stories and my characters because it's the thing that will always draw me back to a game above all else. You know, it's so good, it makes me want to shoot my pistols into the air. Like that, like, you know, real, what was his name, the Looney Tune? Yosemite Sam.
Yosemite Sam.
Yosemite Sam, I lost him for a second there. But again, a game about, you know, about entropy, about the decay of this kind of, this American dream of the West, which is constantly being chased by Dutch van der Linde and his gang of increasingly skeptical acolytes. You know, the what I noticed last time playing through was that, yeah, every section of this game, you know, Coulter obviously at the start, you know, you kind of, that's just your escape from the West, and, you know, it's brutal and cold. But then each one is this kind of, this new attempt at chasing the American dream, and as you chase that dream, you are clearly getting further and further and further from it. You know, even like as far as Guarma, you know, the controversial section on the lovely tropical island. Surely that was the dream, but what's there? A horrible industrialist enslaving people. You know, it's a dream that maybe never existed. Even when you go back west in the epilogue of the game, where's the American dream that he kept talking of? You know, it's that, I think, was the most powerful part for me this time round. And there's, you know, there's so much more to be said about Red Dead Redemption 2 that can be told more eloquently than I can. I just wanted to bring that aspect of it up.
Next up, we have Gears of War, and I've spoke about this game to death probably on this channel, but I just want to say there's more to this game than just the macho, like, shooting aliens or aliens from below, whatever it is. It's just, there's so much heart present in Gears of War, in the story mode, in the multiplayer, which was like a last minute addition as well. It's one of those games that completely defined who I am as a person. Like, back in 2006, this is showing my age, like, Xbox Live wasn't as big as it's gotten, and it was very sort of niche, especially like when I'd go to school and I'd talk to my friends about it. They were all offline people, and I remember Gears of War was the game that sort of got my friendship group together on Xbox Live. It was like I was sort of the nerdy kid who figured out the Ethernet cables and all that, because obviously you needed to hardwire it in and all that. And this is the first game like that I played online. I think like this is that game that just playing like 19-2 Execution on Raven Down with random people who I had just met over Xbox Live. It's like there's me being this like 11, 12-year-old kid talking to adults on Xbox Live on the little mic thing and just having a great time just playing the game, and I got really good at Gears 1, and I do love all the Gears games, but 1 just holds a special place in my heart because of when it came out and how it introduced me to this whole world of just Xbox Live and online gaming.
Next up, The Last of Us Part 2. Now, if you've followed this channel for a long time, or if you've listened to the podcast, you'll know I absolutely adore The Last of Us Part 2, in part thanks to its incredible story. I have played this game probably about 10 times since it launched in 2020, and I find it so emotionally affecting every single time that I go through it. I feel like the characters are so well realized, and that emotional core of grief and how different people deal with grief and how you find solace in violence and hurting others when you're yourself hurting. I think it's so well told and an overall just moving and poignant piece of work. But on top of that, I genuinely think its gameplay is underrated as well. It is one of my favorite third-person shooters to play just in terms of the core combat because it's so intense, it's so scrappy, it's so improvisational, and it's so cinematic with the way the different canned animations blend into each other, the way that the AI will try to smartly surround you and use their own tactics. It's just a fun game to play, and it's a harrowing story to experience.
It's Simpsons Hit and Run. That was the monkey see, monkey do music. Yeah, people are probably gonna go, is Simpsons Hit and Run one of the best games of the 21st century? And okay, maybe it isn't objectively like, Elden Ring level, for instance. But I kind of wanted to have a what might objectively be described as like a 7 out of 10 licensed game on here, because 7 out of 10 licensed games were basically my childhood, and I have grown to love and appreciate when studios get a license right. I think of stuff like the High Moon Transformers games, I think of Raven Software's Marvel games, obviously Rocksteady and Batman, but for me the Simpsons Hit and Run is just a happy childhood memory, a happy, comforting childhood moment. Again, I adore The Simpsons, and for me, this is kind of like the best it ever got on gaming in terms of that IP. It's funny, it's great, it plays well, it still holds up really well, and everyone keeps on talking about how you need a Simpsons Hit and Run remaster or a Simpsons Hit and Run remake. You just need a Simpsons Hit and Run re-release, to be honest, because the game still looks good. People can be like, oh, it looks so SD, oh, the faces are so cursed. It's kind of part of the charm with these games, and the art direction still holds up really, really well. It's brilliantly funny, a total love letter to that series. And I still want to go keep chasing those monkeys, because that's a fun mission, despite what people say, because the soundtrack, really good.
So, the next game on my list is, in my opinion, one of the greatest games ever made. It has the best story in any video game. It's The Last of Us, and this is right up my alley because it's post-apocalyptic, it's like zombies, infected, all that, and it's just, at its core, a father-daughter relationship game. You just feel it, and I don't think I've ever cried in a video game, but those first, opening 15 minutes of The Last of Us with Joel and obviously Sarah and what happens to her, spoilers, she gets killed, but from that moment, I was hooked on this game. I was like, oh my god, Naughty Dog have done something special here. And I know a lot of people dislike this game for the gameplay, but for me, it's very reminiscent of Resident Evil. It wears that sort of inspiration on its sleeve. You've got the Dead Spaces, the Gears of Wars. It's this third-person over-the-shoulder shooting game, which I think The Last of Us does well. Obviously, it has the stealth sections as well, and I'm not a big stealth person as a gamer, but I can tolerate it in The Last of Us because I think the story and the characters just carry it through. And when it came out in 2013, it was visually the best looking game of its time, I think. And even now, you think it came out at the end of the PlayStation 3's life cycle, it's how did they manage to push these sort of visuals out of that console? I'll never know. They're the wizards over there at Naughty Dog. And I think the definitive way to play Last of Us is the remaster on PS4, or you can play it on PS5, where it hasn't changed anything. It's kept that initial vision of the game. And it's mad that we're still talking about the giant decision at the end of the game with Joel and Ellie, and was he right? Were the Fireflies right? And it's just, I think this game will stand the test of time in terms of art. Like in video game forms, like this game to me is art, and I just love it so much.
And in runner-up position, Dark Souls. It wasn't easy to choose one of the Souls games to be on this list. Honestly, between this and Bloodborne and Elden Ring, it could have taken up 3 different slots, but I've decided to go for Dark Souls because what an introduction to From Software this was for many people. I know there was Demon Souls before it, but Dark Souls felt like a cultural moment. And I still go back to it today, and I'm still impressed by it, even if by now I know every single shortcut, every single secret, and how to defeat every single boss. It still impresses me in terms of how cohesive its vision is. That world is one that I just find absolutely spectacular to explore. I think it's a shame that they never really got that interconnected again. That desolation, which has cropped up a lot on my list so far, I think is integral to the tone and the feeling of Dark Souls as well. And weirdly, despite how oppressive it is, despite how intense it is, it's also kind of my cozy game. It's the game that I go to and play when I really want pure escapism. And I think that's hard to achieve, and Dark Souls manages to do it no matter how many times you go through it.
Silent Hill 2, the original, although frankly the remake probably could have been in the runnings for this video as well, but yeah, Silent Hill 2, I just talked about Resident Evil and its dense atmosphere, but this is something else entirely. Not a particularly fun game to play, but if you want like a cathartic, dark release of energy, it's hard to top Silent Hill 2, and it's incredible that this game is 24 years old or something now, because it holds up pretty well. I mean, maybe the controls are a little bit janky, but I love that about it as well. Of course, the classic elements are all here. The idea of Silent Hill is this strange place you're called to sort of confront your sins. Pyramid Head, James Sunderland, the world's worst man. The soundtrack alone. The soundtrack alone, it deserves to be in here for that. So it's Silent Hill 2. It's art.
Number 2, the actual number 2. I'm ranking these things. Number 2, Final Fantasy X. As I've found, having played all 16 Final Fantasies across the last few years, although less so for Final Fantasy 11, because that's the online-only one, Final Fantasy X, I just realized that it's my absolute favorite. It's just, there's something about, as I've said a few times in this video, there's something about the art direction, there's something about the beach locales, the journey that you go on, the world of Spira, the music, the characters. You can tell I'm a sucker for music and characters, but the world of Final Fantasy X, the vibe, the aura, the overall, like I said, art direction, and the sense of immersion that you get going through that game. I love, playing as Tidus. I will say, actually, this can stay in the edit. That awkward laugh, that awkward scene between Tidus and Yuna, that whole thing where, we all pointed and laughed at ourselves. That thing's supposed to be awkward. That thing is supposed to be the young dude, Tidus, bringing this person out of her shell, someone who has consigned her fate to, Yuna thinks that she's going to die on this pilgrimage and whatever else. And Tidus is the one going, look, just laugh about it. It's okay. It's meant to be awkward. It's meant to just have a forced laugh for a minute. It'll make you feel a little bit better. The terribleness of that scene is intentional, for the love of God, and that thing is awesome. But it's the combat system. It is the art direction. It's the way that everybody looks and the world itself. I just love going there. I love replaying it. Over the years, it's like a vacation home. It's like a holiday home. It's like a place that I just love to beam into every now and then. And it's just wall-to-wall satisfaction.
A weird one here, Black Mesa. So, Black Mesa was a fan-made mod for Half-Life 2, which was remaking Half-Life in the Source engine. Half-Life, of course, being made in Valve's much older Gold Source engine. A little bit primitive, didn't really have much in the way of robust physics and systems. When Valve ported Half-Life to Source, it wasn't very good. People were very disappointed by it. So this one mad person took it upon himself to say, I'm gonna do Half-Life in the Source engine. And he started that project in, I think, 2004, when Half-Life 2 came out, and I think the project was finished in 2020. It was a huge, long project because no one was getting paid for it. It was just a team of enthusiastic volunteers who started off with a mod, and It was called Black Mesa Source. Valve eventually said, look, we're really impressed by this. We tell you what, take the name Source out of it. We don't like that, but you can sell that on our platform, you know? So it became a fully fledged game of its own. And as someone who loves Half-Life, I do feel like I can go to Black Mesa instead and say, look, this is kind of what Half-Life always wanted to be. I suggest anyone play both, but it's just Half-Life at like another level, and it has that atmosphere again of Black Mesa, this kind of stricken facility that's crumbling around you, and has the ultimate twist, of course, of, you know, there's been this alien invasion caused by the resonance cascade, and then, hey, Gordon, get to the surface. I hear troops are coming in to rescue us. Are the troops coming in to rescue us? No, they're here to kill every single one of us and cover it up. So you go from fighting aliens to gunning down American servicemen, which I think was probably pretty controversial. The point is, Black Mesa is just this labor of love by, as I say, enthusiastic hobbyists, really, which has spiraled into one of the most beloved remakes of all time, and I can't get enough of it.
Next up, it's boring, predictable Skyrim. Hey! I think I've got to talk about Skyrim primarily because, yeah, we're probably all sick to death of Bethesda RPGs at the moment, even though there's a lot of goodwill going around with Oblivion and such. But for me, Skyrim kind of was the first game to really unlock the role-playing bug in my brain. And was one of the first games that kind of had that like limitless nature to it that I really latched onto. And, you know, going into it and like kind of doing the main campaign and being like, I don't actually care about this, and going back into it and just role-playing and doing my own adventure and coming up with my own stories and stuff. From that perspective, it's kind of really pivotal to me. And yeah, it's frustrating that Bethesda have been able to just rely on the Skyrim kind of crutch, if you will, for the past however many years. But there's a reason why it's so seminal, and it's because we all had great memories going through there and, you know, slaying vampires and becoming werewolves and, you know, killing that really goddamn annoying jester who wouldn't shut the hell up. Cicero, that's his name. Skyrim, great title, great RPG, probably my favorite RPG, and yeah, that's why it's here.
And my favorite game of the 21st century is Fallout New Vegas, a game that is buggy, a game that is compromised, a game that in many ways doesn't fulfill its potential. But all of that just makes it even more impressive. I cannot believe the ambition of this thing. The fact that Obsidian made it in only 18 months and still managed to deliver, for what's my money, the best written RPG that isn't called Disco Elysium that you can possibly play right now. I just think it's such a step above some of the other games in its franchise. The amount of different factions that you can meet that are compelling, that have their own complicated histories and motivations, the choices and the influences that you can have over the world. It's just such a complex mechanism of a thing, and then that's on top of an incredible setting and world that is just butter for me, and it goes down an absolute treat. You've got that Vegas-style, desert-style, 1950s Sinatra overall vibe going on. And I know a lot of people look at the Nevada desert in this game and think, that looks a bit bland, that looks a bit brown. And it's true, but I wouldn't want to be anywhere else in gaming. Get me back in the Mojave and get me that radio on.
So my number one pick, for the most part, these were in no particular order, but I did put this here in this spot for two reasons. I started with the JRPG, I'm going to end with the JRPG, and I'm going to tell you now, it's maybe recency bias, but I think the best game of the last 25 years is Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Just top to bottom, and incredible story, both in the game, but also how it came to be. We just talked about Majora's Mask earlier and the scrappy underdog story, but this is like lightning in a bottle 3 times over, the fact this game even exists, the uphill battle that this would have been to create. And yet you look at the creators and they're just really just like, yeah, it was a thing we did and it was cool. And the whole world just goes, yep, it's great. The gameplay is fantastic. It's exactly what I've been waiting for 20 years as a fan of the genre. Something that pushes it forward on an artistic level as well as a gameplay level. All the characters are perfect. The world is so unique and it's beautiful, but also not like saccharinely so. Like, it's really interesting. The twists along the way are brilliant and divisive in the best possible way. I cannot wait to see what comes next. But if this was all that we ever got from Claire Obscure, from this studio, I mean, how do you start? Most of these people hadn't even made a game before, and this is where you start? Like, how do you top this? And again, just said about Silent Hill soundtracks. I mean, it's so good. So yeah, I think this is a game we're going to be talking about 25 years, 50 years from now as something that hopefully changed the entire industry.
Marvel Spider-Man, you know?
Yes!
We gotta have it in there. And I know, like, I could have done Marvel Spider-Man 2, and to be honest, I think in a great many ways, Marvel Spider-Man 2 is better than the 2018 one. But, I cannot overstate just how much of a breath of fresh air this game was, which is going to sound really weird to a lot of people because they think of Marvel Spider-Man 2018 and they think of a game that owes its existence to Spider-Man 2, 2004, or Ultimate Spider-Man, which came out in 2005, which is also better than Spider-Man 2, but that's by the by. The 2018 Marvel Spider-Man, to me, represents everything that the superhero genre has failed to do right in terms of the last kind of like 15 years or so, in that it takes a version of Peter Parker and pushes him forward into challenges that the comics have been too afraid to actually broach in the mainstream Marvel continuity. Which for me, is someone who isn't as big into his comics and superheroes as he used to be, you know, it still means a great deal because I feel like this is what everything should have been aiming for, really. And I think, you know, that year in general, 2018, was such a great year for Spider-Man because we had that, we had... Also, it was Endgame and also Into the Spider-Verse as well. But the title itself, the video game, Marvel Spider-Man, the presentation is phenomenal. The music is brilliant. The voice acting, everything in between. The way they've reimagined that world and reconceptualized it. And redesigned Spidey's main suit too. For me, yeah, no, it's rightly a system seller. One of the biggest surprises as well, because I never thought that we'd get an exclusive Spider-Man game for the PlayStation. Yeah, it's not my favorite game of all time, but in terms of the conversation over, you know, the last 25 years or so, it definitely has to be in there.
Okami, because not only is it my top game of the 21st century, it's my top game ever, for just being a vibe, a game that makes incredible use of color and its art style and a general kind of positive attitude towards the world, with a great soundtrack, with great characters, with a lovely world to explore. It got me through some really dark times. It was a game that, you know, when I was feeling at my lowest, I could just put the game on and feel better after a bit because, well, have you played Okami? It's gorgeous.
And at the number one spot for me, could it be anything else? Joe, what do you think?
Resident Evil 5?
No, Joe! Not
Resident Evil 4 now.
Resident Evil 4, the original game. And yes, if you know me, if you've watched this channel before, you know this is my game. This is my comfort game. When I was growing up, I used to just play this game over and over and over again. At this point, I probably finished it over 150 times because I have a sickness. Like... What can I say about Resident Evil 4? Obviously, the cultural impact of this game, the fact that it pioneered this third-person shooter genre in the way that it did was incredible. The way that Capcom sort of evolved the Resident Evil formula from RE3 and Code Veronica, this fixed camera perspective, that was such a huge deal. And just the atmosphere, the character writing, the gunplay is just, it's all there in its perfection wrapped up in a video game. And everyone knows I'm a little bit of a Leon Kennedy simp. And this is the game that made me this way. I just think it has infinite replayability factor, even without the mods that you can get on PC, the different like randomizers and stuff like that. You can do a pistol only run with one of the like 5 pistols, and I'm gonna down this hill, the Blacktail, that's the pistol of choice. You can like choose to not upgrade your guns and do it that way. It's just, there's so much to this game, like the depth of the combat, the different ways you can approach a situation, and just going back to that initial like playthrough. You start in the village, you go in that guy's house, and then you like walk into these gates, you go through, you see the cop who's been lit on fire, and then you're sort of like thrown into the deep end. You've got like Dr. Salvador coming at you with the chainsaw, and it's like, Leon's panicking because he doesn't know what's going on, and you as a player who isn't familiar with the mechanics of the game, you're like also in that situation. That's real like fear in a different sense, where it's not like super scary, but you're like fearing for your life, and you're panicking because of all these villagers who are trying to like kill you essentially. But it evolves into like this action game once you get more comfortable with the controls and all that, and everything from the boss fights to like the music, the Serenity save theme. Oh, incredible. I just think this game is pure perfection, and I love it so much.
And number one game, and I have to narrow this whole thing down. The most fun I had with a video game the last 25 years, that was just, oh my God, up there. Good Lord, it's incredible. Halo 2. I know people love Halo 3, but Halo 2 was the one on Xbox, the first time I played multiplayer online, first-person shooting online, Halo 2 online, Blood Gulch. You remember it if you were there. It was an incredible time. And I, for one, love the story. I love all the stuff on New Mombasa at the beginning. I love the whole way that you get introduced to dual wielding at the very beginning of the campaign with all the dudes, all the Covenant coming through the bay windows, the bay doors, and you just get to unload on them with the twin SMGs. Like, I loved Halo 2, man. Like, I get that people didn't like the fact that it ended on a cliffhanger, but for me, knowing it was always a middle installment, that just made me hyped for Halo 3. And Halo 3 is awesome. It ends the franchise, brilliantly. Well, doesn't it? They kept going, but ended the current story really brilliantly. But the Halo 2, man, like the multiplayer, the campaign, the voice, the way that Chief is presented, just that whole thing of look what this Xbox system can do and how much fun are you having in this mold, the acrobatic nature of Halo combat where you're dancing around all the enemies, throwing in the plasma grenades, blowing dudes up, shooting them, meleeing them. Everything just felt so good. And the hype leading into it, like that original reveal trailer with Hoobastank's The Reason underneath it. I'm going deep cuts. When they first showed that thing off at E3 that year with Hoobastank's The Reason alongside it, just history being made. There was so much fun embedded in the run-up to Halo 2, and Bungie knew exactly what they had. And it's one of those things where you've obviously found out after the fact that the game was crunched, they had hardly any time to turn it around. But the end result, at least to me, was still thoroughly sensational. I absolutely adored my time with Halo 2. And that's just proper childhood wonder come to life. Halo 2 is one of the absolute finest experiences that you can have as a gamer if you were there at the time, if you go back now, but especially if you were there at the time.